Okay, this is hands down the best way to spend your time. Frank Young's latest video completely changed my life. You see, I watched it a few weeks ago and it made me realize that there's more to consciousness than I thought. Now, before we get into the details, let's just get a quick overview of what consciousness is and how people operate nowadays. So you've got the first stage, which is egoic, which is identifying with thoughts. So you get your sense of self from identifying with thoughts. So you sit there and think, the voice in your head when you talk to yourself, you think that's you. That's the first stage. You're not very conscious if you do that. The second stage is to identify with awareness, you shouldn't identify with anything ideally, but in the second stage you sort of automatically do that if you step out of the thinking. So you identify with awareness. What is awareness? Awareness is, you can see things, you can see the screen right now, but you're not the screen, you're not sight. You're the one who is aware of the sight. If your mind is empty, if you're still, that is awareness. But ultimately, as I've learned from Frank Young, awareness is something you can experience. If you can be aware of the awareness, well, then you can experience the awareness. It's the same thing as experiencing sight. I can experience sight, but I can also experience the person experiencing, or the entity, the thing, experiencing sight. And so therefore I cannot be sight or the one experiencing sight. The next stages are currently beyond my comprehension, but the third stage is to start identifying with everything. Frank Young calls this the God mind, or God consciousness, where you think you are everything. And then he says if you step out of that, because that's still a viewpoint that you can identify with, you start identifying with being everything. If you step out of that, you become completely empty. But emptiness is also something you can identify with. And that's the last stage before, at least according to Frank Young, you become enlightened, where, as he puts it, there's no center, so you do not perceive the world through, behind your head, as you're doing right now, most likely. There's also no self, which you reach at the fourth stage, and if you look at the previous, stages of consciousness, in the beginning you identify with thought, then you identify with awareness, then you identify with everything. In the fourth stage, you identify with nothing, but you're still perceiving the world. You're perceiving the world. Look, just being in the awareness stage is absolutely amazing, because you stop identifying with the voice in the head, you can choose to not think, and when you go about doing things in the world, you're conscious of them. You're really, really conscious of everything that's happening. Like when I'm speaking right now, I'm just conscious of me speaking. The speaking is almost happening by itself. When I look at myself in the camera, I'm conscious of myself in the camera. It's not like I think that this experience is me. Ultimately, every time you progress in this entire chain of consciousness, your life improves significantly. I mean, just going from thought to awareness is massive. It's so nice. So I'm telling you that awareness is really, really nice. This second stage, just jumping out of the head, jumping out of thought, jumping out of identifying with thought. Not thought itself, because you can use thought, it's a tool, but identifying with it is another thing, which most people do. Anyway, just jumping, doing that little jump, is amazing. It improves the quality of your life tremendously. Then imagine going all the way. The Buddha said that the enlightenment is the end of suffering. And what I've realized is that after, meditating very consistently these past few weeks, the more I meditate, the less I suffer. Before, I was still aware, but I had much more emotional pain from conflicts with my family. But now it's almost like a way to describe it that's very accurate, right now, at least for me, is before I was a rock, then I became jello, then I sort of became a rock again, and now that I've started meditating, I'm becoming jello again. So when someone says something to me, it goes right through me. Like, when someone speaks to me, it's like they're not even speaking to me. So a thing I like to do is I ask the person speaking to me, mostly my family, who are you talking to? Now, look at all of this as achieving a good physique. So in the beginning, you're identified with thoughts. You have, you don't work out. And then in the end, you're enlightened and you have, the physique. You're sort of genetic potential, but you know what I mean when progress is very slow. But ultimately over here it's like you lock it in and then I don't think it really changes. And meditation is then the workouts. So you just show up to practice consistently and you progress from a consciousness perspective and you suffer less and less and less and less. And I believe that this is one of the most important, no, it's the most important path anyone can take. Okay, so what's the message of this video? The message is go and meditate. Go and do it. Because what I've noticed when I meditate is that, okay, sometimes it feels nice. Sometimes it feels absolutely horrible. Sometimes I think it is the hardest thing I've ever done. And sometimes I think it's possible. You know how it is. And the reason why I suffer so much sometimes when I do it, and other people too, from my experience from reading on the internet, is that you're letting go of emotions. Because if you look at childhood traumas, from what I've understood from the science, those get stored in you. It's like PTSD, but more generic for everybody. So, that time your parents screamed at you when you were 3, 4, or 5. In my life, that happened a lot to me because of several reasons. Because of having fairly unconscious parents. God bless them, they're much better now. So I have a lot of stuff to deal with. And I feel like if this is the way to empty out this stuff. So you know how in your body you have a bunch of pollution, and there are ways to get that pollution out through eating a correct diet, a diet that protects you. This is the same thing, but instead of ridding yourself of pollution, you're ridding yourself of emotional pollution. And I think that most people go through their lives carrying all of this, and that's why you see that many old people are very grumpy, while if you look at children, they're not very grumpy. That's because they've built up all of this crap inside of them that they haven't let go of. And so when you meditate, you let go of everything, you dissolve everything, you dissolve the self, you dissolve the mind, you dissolve the body, you dissolve the one perceiving, you dissolve sensations, you dissolve everything imaginable in your experience, and ultimately you're left with yourself, your true self, which shouldn't even have a name. It should be, instead of calling it self, we should call it, that's it. And it's not even a silence, because silence is something you can perceive. You understand where I'm going with this? Okay, so lastly, how do you meditate? Now, I've learned a lot about this topic during the past few weeks by watching Frank Young's videos. Again, he's absolutely amazing. I'll link his videos down in the description, or his channel. But also, the video I think is the most important one, which is his latest one. In it, he recommends doing Vipassana and do nothing meditation. So I'll start with do nothing meditation. The only thing you need to do is to do nothing. Yes. And when I say nothing, I mean do not move your body. Do not cling on to something. So if you feel like you can't not think, as an example, do not cling on to that. Try to not think, or do not try, just do nothing and you won't think. That's basically it. That's the instructions he gives, so that's the instructions I'm going to give you. Sit there and do nothing. That's it. And I would do that for an hour. You should build up to an hour, ideally. Because when you get up to those numbers, when you get up to, 6 hours, something like that, when you can meditate for an entire day, you take breaks, but still you're able to meditate without any larger problems, without suffering too much, like you do in the beginning stages, then automatically the quality of your life will be absolutely amazing if you're able to do that. So show up to practice and you'll be able to do that stuff. Now I also mentioned Vipassana. What is Vipassana? Well, think of do nothing meditation as expansion. I don't really understand that concept fully, but think of it as expansion. Vipassana is contraction. It's zooming your awareness in on one point, on one thing. So, you know, breath meditation, where you're aware of your breath. Being aware of your body, or being aware of everything that you hear, that's also Vipassana or contraction. This stuff trains concentration, the other stuff trains relaxation. You should practice both of them because they will make sure you're covered from all sides. It's like if you work out, there's merit to using lighter weights and there's merit to using heavier weights, and there's no reason to stick to one of them because why not get the benefits of both? So that's why you should do both. You should do nothing, and then you should do Vipassana. And Vipassana means to penetrate or see clearly. And an important distinction that I think I should add is that, at least according to Frank Young, Vipassana and mindfulness are not the same. So being aware of the breath and Vipassana are not the same. To see clearly is to, see the breath. I don't fully understand this, but from my own experience, the breath is impermanent and ultimately it is just sensation. So when you're mindful, you might be mindful of the fact that air is going into your nose and air is exiting from your nose, and you're aware that you're meditating, and sure, yeah, that's mindfulness. But Vipassana is to see clearly, it's to see through all of that. There is no one meditating. So that's the difference between mindfulness and Vipassana. Vipassana is to meditate through the perspective of what is it that is actually the case here? What is actually, what is this? And in the case of the breath, it's just sensations, it's nothing else. And with any object of meditation, so breath, hearing, smelling, whatever it might be, feeling the body, doing nothing, it's ultimately just sensations. So when you're meditating, don't fabricate stuff. I usually start thinking, oh, air is flowing into my nose, from below, into my body, and that's thinking, that's mind stuff. Just be aware of the sensations, because ultimately that's all you're perceiving, really. Okay, so what should you do now? Start incorporating meditation into your daily schedule. Try to do both types, both Vipassana and do nothing. Go to Frank Young if you want more advanced information. I'm just doing this so that I can spread the message, but I don't know as much as he does. Realize that besides improving your health tremendously, meditation is the best way to increase the quality of your life tremendously. So do it. Try to incorporate it. Try to do it, take it to the advanced level where you don't just sit there for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. Yeah, do that in the beginning, of course. We don't want to tire you out. But then take it to, the hour, the 2 hours, the day where you just try to meditate as much as you can, so that you really get the practice in, so that you really can dissolve stuff, so that you really start living. And with that said, go and achieve excellent health. I know you can do it.